And we are live on the Metal Voice talking about something that's not metal. Look at that. We're talking prog, but in a sense, prog rock. I mean, Judas Priest used to call themselves a progressive band. They're making progressive music. So the whole prog thingy turned into metal over time. Eamon O'Neill, all the way in Ireland.
Hello over there in Canada, Jimmy K. Thanks for having me on today.
You know, you're the go-to for all thing Marillion and Fish. So I figured, you know what? Fish is saying goodbye. Goodbye. He's dropping the mic. That's it. Tomorrow, actually, today is the last two shows in Scotland, in Glasgow, Scotland. He is doing his final performances, dropping the mic, walking away as I got to be clear here, walking away as a solo artist, perhaps, singer, performing the songs of his solo work in Marillion. Doesn't mean he's never going to do something musical in the future, but as we know him, as a solo artist, as the former singer of Marillion, and the stuff he's been doing for his past 30, 40 years, he's calling it quits. Goodbye, farewell, and he means it. Eamon, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I interviewed Fish back in 2014, I believe, and I was rereading the interview ahead of this, and even then, he was talking about wrapping it up. He said then that he was going to do the final album, Weltschmerz, which he did, and that he was going to do a few anniversary tours, and then he was going to wrap it up. So he's been talking about this for a while, and I don't think it's like a Scorpions thing where he planned to protract it. He actually meant it. So it's kind of sad that it's come around. I mean, I never got to see him on this tour. Did you?
Amen. I'll get into the time that I did see Marillion and Fish, but I'm going to tell you this. Since I live in Canada, he hasn't played in North America since 2008. And even before 2008, if he played once, I don't remember. So there was a show here in Montreal, Canada. I did not go to it. Big regrets, but it was just, it's a time. You think they're going to come back, right? You think they're going to come back and you get your opportunity, but nope, your opportunity was not there. Jim Harrison, what's going on? He's texting in. Yes, this is not a metal show today. This is about prog rock, Marillion, and Fish, his final farewell. If you followed Fish, he's been saying, I'm closing the book on this album. I'm closing the book on that album. I'm closing the book on Misplaced Childhood. I'm closing the book on Clutching at Straws. I'm closing the book on all these issues and reissues I've done. And one day it's over. It ain't no Kiss here. It's not Kiss. We're coming back. No, we're not coming back. Like you said, this guy means it. He's actually going to be a farmer, I think. He's moving to the North Isles of Scotland. You probably know more about this than I do, Eamon. Somewhere up north in some island where the Vikings used to live.
Yeah, it's not exactly Bora Bora or tropical island. This is going to be wild, rustic, windy, historic. It looks beautiful, to be fair. Some of the stuff I've seen, some of the clips and stuff. I guess if you're going to retire from music, there could be worse places to go.
I mean, I would have preferred Hawaii, but listen, from my understanding is from all his podcasts is he's getting some farm animals. He's going to have some sort of crops. He said he's been he needs to be his own person for a while. He needs to just drop this whole, it's a lot of work, man. The fans never want him to end. The fans never want him to stop making music or touring and playing live. He's done acting. Right? You've seen he's done some Hollywood movies too, and maybe not the major roles. Braveheart, he was up for the role of Braveheart, but of course
he was up for the role. I think from my interview, not that I'm trying to plug it, of the Kurgan in Highlander. Do you remember Highlander?
Yes, great movie. Yeah.
He was up for a role in that, and it also come up in that interview that Marillion were offered the soundtrack and they turned it down. So the soundtrack was then offered to their EMI label mates, who were Queen, who famously did it.
Queen was the soundtrack to Highlander, if you remember that.
Yeah, so it was offered to Marillion first, according to the Fish interview. But
yeah. All right, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to remember, since Fish is calling it quits, let's talk about his legacy. In parallel, what we'll do is You'll talk about the Marillion albums, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, and I'll talk about his solo album. So we'll go back and forth, keeping it light, remembering the albums, remembering the legacy, remember what he went through. You know, the ups and downs, the rise and fall and rise and departure of Fish. You like that? The rise and fall and the rise and the farewell of Fish.
Yeah.
All right, let's start off. Marillion. Here's a band that Fish used to be a lumberjack of some sort, right? He used to work for the forest industry, played in pub bands. Marillion, Sir Marillion was the name of the band. They were recording some demos. And I guess they got Fish in there. Long story short, they got some attraction, but EMI, and you have Market Square Heroes.
And this is it.
First. Yeah, that's the first single
record
EP.
there.
Yeah.
There's Grendel on the B side there.
Wow.
I mean, straight out of the box, I mean, they got our work nailed, haven't they? They totally got it. That song obviously has a lot of significance for Marillion as a band. Market Square Heroes, 3 minutes 45 seconds, nice length for a single. And the one time that the five of them reunited ever, they played that one song, and that was in Aylesbury about, I don't know how many years ago. So the significance of that song can never be downplayed. I don't really know what else to say about it.
Well, Jimmy? That's what I'm going to tell you. I bought the reissue of Script for a Jester's Tear, and it includes the EP, which is remixed and remastered. And wow, if you're going to buy anything from Marillion, I would highly recommend this sucker right here. Just for the disc that is the Market Square Hero EP, Grendel, 17-minute song. It's like Move Over 2112. What a bombastic, romantic, explosive track. And that's what Fish is, right? He's got a romantic, pissed off voice. He's soft spoken, but he's mad.
I've got to hand it to you. You've nailed it. It's 17 minutes and 40 seconds. I'd give you the gold star for that.
Dink, dink, dink. What can we say about that EP? It launched. I'm going to tell you something. The reason why, and I'm going back in time, a little older than you, just a few years. Peter Gabriel left Genesis. What was it? 78, 79? I don't, around there. Maybe a little. If someone please correct me on the date. Probably sometime in the late 70s. He left when the band was at their high peak. They were sort of doing really well. So there was a gap. There was a demand for a romantic, proggy band. And Marillion came along, and holy shit, these guys sound just like Genesis, at least in the early days, right? And they filled that gap. And that's first time I ever heard them on the radio. It was the first album. We'll get into that in a second. But they were filling a gap that was missing in the marketplace. And that's kind of, at least what I think. Those were the first Marillion fans were Peter Gabriel Genesis fans. But if you want to add to that.
Well, I mean, so you've got the reissue, and there's the original picture disc. I mean, I just say, yeah, I'm a little younger, so I had no idea this album when it came out. I had to subsequently go back and get into it. For me, it's not my favorite Marillion album, and it doesn't have that. It doesn't land the way it does, that emotional aspect that you have with it. But I completely understand what you're talking about. And there's still some amazing songs on it, like straight away the title track, for example.
Yeah, we'll get into more of that just in a second. I'm going to show everybody the first Fish solo album. So we're going to go in parallel. First albums of Marillion, first albums of his solo albums, just to keep it going that way. The first solo album by Fish after he left Marillion, we'll get into why he left later on, was Vigil in the Wilderness of Mirrors. This is the reissue I bought. Look at that, beautiful. Same artist as Marillion. What's his name?
Mark Wilkinson.
Mark Wilkinson. Beautiful artwork. You open it up, it's wonderful. This is the either remaster, I think it's remixed. So Fish leaves Marillion. They had 4 strong albums, climbing up on top, right? I guess after touring and recording, management, just being overwhelmed, he just had enough. He leaves the band, comes out with a solo album. Tell me about the problems between the solo album when it was released. Do you remember?
Yeah, there was some sort of they didn't want to split the fan base. So hang on, let's get this right. Fish was on Polydor Records, right?
No, he was first. He was on EMI.
Yeah, with Marillion.
This was an EMI, and right, he was with Marillion on EMI. He signs a solo deal on EMI. Now Marillion's new album with their new singer Steve Hogarth at the time comes out in '89, and they go, "Wait a second, we're gonna have a conflict here."
Mm-hmm.
So they pushed back his solo album.
Yeah,
and people were. I was working in a record store, and I remember they had these posters, and they were just getting ready to like push it out marketing wise. And they go, no, hold off. And they held it off for like 6-7 months. That completely took the sales out of that boat. The marketing sort of plan behind this just fell to pieces. And there's a lot of momentum, right, in the music industry, right? You got to capture that momentum if you want to be successful as an artist, because fans are finicky, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, ahead of this, what we're doing now, I pulled out a copy of Kerrang! Magazine. It was from January 1990, January 89, and it lists all the bands, what they're going to be doing in 89. And straight out of the bat, it says Marillion are going to find a new singer, but Fish will release his new solo album. And as you have just said, that isn't what happened. What happened was Marillion found their singer and released their album, and Fish's album then didn't come out to 1990. Am I right about that?
Yeah, that's right.
It was 90, wasn't it?
It was 90. Yeah. And here's the kicker. In his contract with Marillion, again, according to what I'm reading, there was a non-solo artist clause. So they would own the music on his solo album just like they owned it because he quit. So there's a difference. He quit the band, so that means there was a couple of clauses that kicked in that if you have solo music that you're going to release afterwards, EMI owns that. That's why they could stop him from releasing. Then he kind of countersues him saying you didn't promote my album correctly, and then those lawsuits went on forever and ever. So, I mean, if anybody thinks I'm wrong about what I'm saying here, please correct me. So
it's like, do you ever watch the Ruttles, the Eric Idle thing where he parodies the Beatles and he goes, it was a golden time for lawyers.
So anyways, Vigil in the Wilderness of Mirrors comes out. Personally, I think it's a great album. It's a very Marillionistic album. It's because he was kind of thinking still in that Marillion vein. You could hear parts of that album on the demos of Seasons. Marillion was Seasons? It was Seasons End, right? You can hear parts of that there and vice versa. Vigil's a great song. Big Wedge is amazing. State of Mind. It's a great album overall. Not Marillion-like, but still there's a lot of Marillion vibes in that music. So I'm not sure if, I know that you're in the solo work, you're not too well versed in it. You're more of the Marillion Fish,
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, it's funny you're talking about that album, the artwork on that. Again, this was I sound like I'm trying to plug my interview. I'm not. Read it if you want.
No, it's good. It's good. There it is. Look at this.
Fish told me that on the original artwork of that, somewhere near the bottom of the hill, is a picture of Mark Kelly and of the original manager, John, whatever his name is, as a kind of FU to them, and it's on the original artwork of that somewhere. By the way, he subsequently said that, look, him and Mark Kelly are cool and blah, 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 and, it's all water under the bridge. But on the original artwork, there was some subtle details in there, not exactly being friendly, shall we say, to
which actually reminds me on their split, when his split with Marillion. Again, according to the music press, he said it's either me or the manager. And they chose the manager. He goes, and I'm quitting. Again, that's according to the music, interviews or in the news that's out there or was out there. So anyways, first solo album, I think it's great. Too bad it did not get that momentum that it should have gotten. Marillion actually, Season's End did get the momentum, and they did pretty well with the first Steve Hogarth album. So let's start things off with the first. I know you talked about it before, but Script for a Gesture Tear. This is the first Marillion album, very Genesis-like. I mean, which are your highlights in terms of songs?
For me, certainly the title track. It's not annoying when picture discs are all printed wonky like that. And yeah, He Knows, You Know, which when I was a kid, I was like, what the hell does that mean? He knows, you know, is it, you know?
Don't give me your problems. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Garden Party, Forgotten Sons, which is another epic track. What is that, like 10 minutes long? I don't remember.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny looking at this now. Look, there's only 6 songs on this, but obviously you could chop the bigger songs down into smaller songs.
Look at this artwork. Look at this brilliant artwork. You know, he's holding a violin without a violin, whatever they call it, that little chord thing. That what do they call it? The violin bow. The bow. Yeah. That's it. Beautiful artwork. Great album. It did very well in Canada because we're very proggy, and I'm sure globally this was their first launch into success. The missing of Genesis Peter Gabriel, of course, assisted them because they, hey, look, Peter Gabriel's back, in a sense, right? So we got the music. Any final thoughts on that first album?
For a lot of people, this is their favorite Marillion album. I can understand that. It's not my favorite Marillion album. We'll get to that. But and yeah, it's beautiful. That artwork, Jimmy's right. It's just stunning.
Mick Pointer, the drummer, who is that's the only album he plays on. I think he plays with the band Arena. He also goes out as Mick Pointer's Marillion tribute, and he plays that first album. Have you ever seen him live?
No, I haven't. I wish I had, because I get him to sign this thing, but
All right, second solo album by Fish, Internal Exile. Now he's getting all Scottish, right? Some great tracks, Shadowplay, Credo, but he's kind of moving away from that traditional Marillion sound that we're all, used to, that proggy sound. He's getting more folky, more Celtic-y. This is probably one of his strongest albums, like from start to finish. I'm not going to get into the whole thing. Great production. The artwork, he could have done something different.
I watched a video from that album recently, and you'll be fit to tell me what it was, Jimmy. I'm not sure which song it was.
Yeah.
But it's like the most Scottish thing I've ever seen in my life.
It could have been, I'm not sure. Look, I know he did Just Good Friends, which he redid a few times, and he does a duet for Just Good Friends, which is a nice duet, slow song. Maybe it was Internal Exile. That's the one you're thinking about. It's very Celtic and Scottish. Yeah. But Shadowplay, Credo, these are songs that people love, and people have loved them for years. Again, this album was on Polydor. He switched labels now. And I think they kind of lost money, or they went bankrupt. So things were like just not going well in terms of a label success, or they're going to go bankrupt. And again, this album came out in 1992, maybe 91. Prog rock is falling out of fashion. Metal is falling out of fashion. Fish is falling out of fashion. Too bad. I was working in a record store when this album came out. It was like nobody but me knew it was being released. Just myself. I go, I've got to get this album. There's one copy, right? Nobody
You're
else.
The guy. You're the guy that bought it.
All right, let's go to Fugazi.
Fugazi.
Look at this album.
I get to show off my fully signed Fugazi.
Yep.
Everybody has signed that. It's
really?
Very pride of place for me. Yeah. I met Fish, Ramblin' Man Fair, and he signed it for me. I got the other 4 guys to the Marillion gig, obviously.
Yeah.
It's a beauty. Again, first off, and a lot of, 80s, guys who grew up in the 80s listening to metal and stuff will tell you, as soon as you see the artwork, you read this time and again. I saw the artwork and I had to buy it. Now, it didn't happen with Fugazi. I bought the live album Reel to Reel that came out after this. But the artwork just draws you in, doesn't it, Jimmy?
Released in 1984, we're talking about the metal era now, right? We're talking about when metal is going in full swing. And when you see an artwork like this, just hold it up again.
There you go.
You think it's a metal band. I go, who's this Marillion metal band? You know, with what the hell does Fugazi mean? What the hell's up with that?
There's that full artwork in the gatefold. It's stunning.
Hold it up there, right there. Notice he's lying on the bed. He's got a glass of wine in one hand. He's got his Sony Walkman on his headphones. He's got the Rip Gestures outfit on, you know, and everything's gone to hell, basically. And then if you look in the mirror, you can see, you know, the rest of his gesture, the gesture looking himself in the mirror. Two sides to him. The sad clown. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. You know, Assassin and Punch and Judy, those were like the two hard rock and metal tracks, especially the way Fish is singing and the anger of the first two tracks.
Assassin, now, I have to say, that song is one of my all-time favorite Marillion songs. And I'm going to be controversial here. I think the single edit is better than the album version. Now, you're going to throw things at me. But I love the single edit of this. I think it's perfect.
It's interesting because Marillion really grew in Montreal, and that's where you got Reel to Reel right after. I mean, half of it's filmed here, or not filmed here, but it's recorded here. Punch and Judy, Assassinating, Jigsaw, She Chameleon, Fugazi, the end track. This album, it's 80s, but it's prog 80s. Now they're kind of moving away from their Genesis sort of. For all the people who are calling them just Genesis a tribute band in a sense, or Genesis sound-alikes, now they're moving into who they really are as a band. They finally captured their own sound. Fish is pissed mad. He's hurt. He's traumatized. He's screaming about his life and all the injustices and being a rock star. And I think that's a big part of this album, is like the rock star, the good, the bad, the highs, the lows.
Yeah, I mean, something that I find really interesting about this album is, now, as if people don't know, both myself and Jimmy are fans of all eras of Marillion, and give equal weight and respect to the Hogarth era as well. Fugazi is the album that Steve Hogarth struggles with, because he can't identify with the lyrical content, and he has, as far as I know, he has never sung Assassin. But by the way, which I totally respect, you know, his reasoning for that. But it's just interesting that, you know, this is the one that is kind of, you know, he just can't connect with.
You know what? Listen to the first track, Assassinating. When you listen to his vocal delivery on that song, it sounds like something out of a metal, like something out of some sort of power metal band. His delivery is like no other, right? I mean, he's using those falsettos, that head voice going down, just all over the map. So, I mean, if there was ever a metal song from Marillion, that one would be it.
Oh, by the way, the title has always driven me mad. Should not be Assassin. Why is the G on the end? Assassin. Somebody's going to comment and go, well, actually, it's because of this. But yeah, I'm over it, but just about.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. Guys, if you don't have a copy of this is the reissue that I purchased. It's from Marillion, and I'm not sure if it was Fish or Marillion, but either way, this is incredible. I believe Reel to Reel is on this. Or the other one that they had, Reel to Reel, and there's another one too.
Brief Encounter.
Brief Encounter might be on this. I can't see it because it's very dark. There's a Blu-ray on it too. This album remixed. Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Go pick it up if you never had it. Now it's time to buy it. All right. Third Marillion, or I say, sorry, Fish album is Suits. I do not have a copy of it here because it kind of lost me a little bit. Suits was released in 1994. Grunge is at full steam ahead. A little too much keyboards, very 80s sounding like. The kind of funky vibe, a lot of back vocals, a lot of slap in the bass. I never really was a big fan of Suits. Probably one of the longest time to record an album was Suits, or at least to write it. I think it was supposed to be something that it wasn't. Not the worst album ever by Fish, but Suits released 1994. I'm not sure if you have any experience, but there are some good tracks like Lady Let It Lie and Fortune of War, Jumpsuit City. There's some cool tracks. Not the worst album in the world, but not my favorite.
I think that would be like Marillion when he was entering his indie years as on the independent label off the majors. I mean, both and even not just Marillion, but other metal acts at that time were finding themselves in the indie labels. There was only a few that possibly survived during that period, i.e. Iron Maiden, for example, who managed to hang on to EMI, but a lot of the bigger bands were now on a different level.
Knuckle Dragon is saying you don't interact with chat. I don't know who that is. El Guitar Player, you just gave me $1.99. That's very nice of you, El Guitar Player. I'm trying to see what they're saying here. Well, Knuckle Dragon saying Divorice, which is basically a lyric from Punch and Judy. Where are we at? We're at Misplaced Childhood.
We are. Has anyone ever heard of that album? Here it is.
Whoops. There it is. There's a little. I have the album there somewhere back.
Is that? Oh, that's fully signed as well. I managed to get fish on this one too.
Wow.
So yeah, this is obviously the biggie. This is the one that landed with a bang. Oh, there's another fully signed thingy in there.
Nice.
That is the one with Kaylee on it, Lavender, Heart of Lothian, my personal favorite, Childhood's End, I think is an unreal track. As they did when they performed this live before it came out, it's like a side one and side two. It's almost like one or two complete pieces. They were really honing their craft here, and it showed because this album just landed, and I think it gave them a number 2 album in the UK, possibly a number one.
It was number 1 in the UK, yeah.
Also, it was Kaylee that was a number 2 single. Yeah, I mean, this was the big time for them. I mean, on this tour, they played in Milton Keynes Bowl, which is a huge outdoor arena with Gary Moore and Mama's Boys, I think Magnum. I mean, yeah, they had made it by this stage, hadn't they?
So I saw them on this tour. Saw them in Montreal. They opened up for Rush Power Windows. So, whoa, Rush Power Windows, Marillion opening up.
Yeah, that's a good bill.
And here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. They played the whole album from start to finish. No encore. It was just the whole album. That was it. And White Feather was the last track, and that's it. Marillion goes on stage. Which band goes on stage as an opener and plays their whole album? Because it's a concept album, right? It all runs in one piece. So that was this.
Were they a success then? Was that pre or during their? I'm just wondering. Did people know who they were? Or were they just the opening band and then it became successful?
Every time I turned on the radio, Kaylee was on. On. Videos were very popular. Music videos were very popular. The Kaylee, it was a big hit. It was a big hit in Canada. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but in Canada, at least in Montreal, it was a big hit. Everybody was going to the show knowing Kaylee and knowing Lavender Blue. But after that, nobody knew anything else. So what they did with Lavender Blue, I don't know if you remember this. So it's a song, it's like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They had to extend it to make it a single. Usually you edit singles. This one was extended. Like they did, okay, let's play the same verse again or the chorus one more time. So they extended it. So they had 2 hits, Kaylee and Lavender Blue. And Lavender Blue was the extended version. So yeah. So everybody I went to Rush Power Windows. They weren't really big Marillion fans. And as I'm sitting there, they're going, all right, Kaylee, it's the first song. All right, Lavender Blue is the second song. And then the rest of the album, they had absolutely no idea. And I could see the audience.
There's Lavender. That's the Lavender picture disc.
That's it. Beautiful.
That's the Kaylee one. Oh. A lot of picture discs if you're into Marillion.
So I guess what I wanted to say is they didn't come on and do a greatest hits of Marillion. They did the whole Misplaced Childhood album. And it's if you don't know the album, it's you got to sit through it, right? And if you're not familiar with it, it's a tough sit through. So I wouldn't say they went crazy. They went crazy in the first 2 songs, but after that it was tame. And then before they ended, it came up again. So I'm happy I was there. I don't care about everybody else.
Good time to catch them live, definitely.
All right, where are we at now?
Next solo album.
Let's see what the next solo album was. I'm trying to remember. Oh boy, Sunsets on Empire. Now we're talking about this. Let's find it here. He's back on track. Sunsets on Empire. Wow, what a great album. It's got a little bit of everything. Perception of Johnny Punter and Goldfish and Clowns. What Color is God? And then the big track. It could have been off of Marillion album, Brother 52. He's back. Sounding great. The album is stupendous. And the tour bombs and the album bombs and everything goes under the radar. Poor Fish. I go, what the frig, man? This album, by the way, see the CD? I bought it when it came out. And it has like a video clip embedded into it. So if you play it on your computer, you can actually see Brother 52 music video. So that was a new high technology back then.
What year was that then? That's going to be what?
This was 97. So you think about it, 1997, people weren't thinking Fish and Marillion. I was so excited. I bought the album. I love this album. To this day, I love this album. I think it's a very strong album by Fish. It just completely fell off everything. And it's a shame that it did. It's a shame that it did. And that's Sunset on. But I would recommend if you can but it's been loved by the fans later on, right? So people have grown to love this, and it's caught a lot of caught everybody's ears. All right, so what are we at now? We're at Clutching.
Clutching at Straws. Well, I mean, I'm glad we're talking about Clutching at Straws because a few years ago, oh my God, you've got it on vinyl and I have it on CD. It's the reverse of what we had earlier.
Well, I have other vinyls, by the way. They're just in my vinyl. I just grabbed the CD. It's easier.
So I'm glad we're talking about Clutching at Straws. A number of years ago, me and Jimmy did a Marillion album ranking.
Yep.
And I was adamant that it had to be Marbles. And Jimmy very graciously said, okay, you can have the number 1 and Clutching at Straws will be number 2. I have to say Clutching at Straws now is my favorite Marillion album. It's a masterpiece.
Masterpiece.
I love that you're holding it proudly there, Jimmy, because so you should be. It's brilliant.
Don't eat it. You know what's funny about this album? When I bought the vinyl a long time ago, it had a missing track. It was missing
Torch Song, isn't it?
I'm gonna tell you in a second. It was missing not Torch Song.
White Russian.
It's like not that time. No. Man, what is it? It's missing one song. Quickly to the CD. I don't have the CD. It's missing a song for the record. No, not just for the record. That time
I think it's Torch Song. I'm gonna look it up.
It's an acoustic. It's an acoustic intro, right?
Yeah, that's Torch Song.
Okay, maybe it's a Torch Song. When I bought this album, Torch Song's on this album.
Oh God.
There's one track that was not on the official album, but they added it later on the CD and all the reissues. Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna find it. Hang on.
But in the meantime, Incommunicado comes out as a single. So does Sugar Mice. This album, I don't know if it's because they knew Fish was taken off that they didn't put the money behind it to properly market this album. But look, Kaylee was major success. And I guess to top that success would have been a lot harder. This album still did well. Fans still love it. A lot of fans today think it's their favorite album next to or Misplaced. It could, depending on the day, right?
Ironically, it's since we're talking so much about the artwork, it's the worst Marillion album artwork up until that point on the best album. Even the band themselves conceded that the idea it didn't come through the way they quite wanted to.
Yeah. But look at this track listing, Eamon. Hotel Hobbies, the little xylophone at the beginning, right? Warm
Unreal
White Circles, That Time of the Night, just for the record, White Russian. You know, he mixes social commentary, personal feelings, and political commentary all in one song. He's a brilliant lyricist. And you're talking about he's 28, 29 years old at this time.
Yeah.
Right? Funny thing is, Peter Gabriel quit Genesis at 27, 28 years old. He goes, I had enough. I want to do my own work. Funny enough, he does the same thing about 28, 29. He goes, I had enough of this. I'm going to do my own work.
Well, I remember reading the liner notes of the 97, 98 reissues of those Marillion albums. And he called the song That Time of the Night his resignation letter.
Yeah.
So if you listen to the lyrics, if you ask me where do I go from here, my next explanation really isn't that clear. He's venting there about leaving the band, even as he's recording the album.
He actually, on Internal Exile, I forgot about this. He does do a farewell to Marillion on a Dear Friend. That song is, I'm not sure which band member he's saying goodbye to, but he's sort of reminiscing on the Marillion days. So he does do a little nod to Marillion and his time with the band. Incommunicado.
Do you know something? Personally, and maybe it's because it's an overplayed thing, but the more famous songs on that album are the ones that I kind of like the least. I'm not saying I don't like them, but Incommunicado and I suppose Slàinte Mhath, and even Warm Wet Circles, they're less, to me, they're less powerful than even, say Sugar Mice, which I know was a single, but Sugar Mice and Hotel Hobbies and Torch Song, which I absolutely love. In fact, I love Torch Song so much that I recorded a cover version of it, which is on my YouTube channel.
There you go. On your YouTube channel. Incommunicado, but think of what he's writing. He's writing about, he's now had success with his last album. And now he's incommunicado. You can't find me, you can't hear me, you can't hear what I'm saying. I'll be at the bar, incomprehensible. So again, mixing social commentary, pop culture, his feelings, political culture at the time, or whatever the case is, he's pulling it all in his lyrics. And that's what makes him so great. And there's always a part of him in all his lyrics.
And you know what? You've hit on something quite succinct there, because Marillion as a band, the four musicians, were also at the height of their powers. If you listen to the nuance in something like Torch Song or Hotel Hobbies, everything is just nailed in it. Mark Kelly is coming up with his best stuff. Steve Rothery, his solos are unreal. His guitar parts are amazing. Every one of the members of that band has reached a crescendo. And married with that lyrical thing, you've got a recipe for brilliance.
You know what? I did leave out the rest of Marillion, because the band without Fish, it would have never been, the albums that they made would have never been what they are today without all these members right together. That sort of combination, that perfect combination.
I had a conversation, or I interviewed Steve Rothery specifically around the reissue of this album. And I asked him about the solo in Sugar Mice, which is probably one of his signature solos.
Yeah.
And he said that solo just came out of frustration because he was clashing so much with a producer who was basically telling him that what he was doing wasn't good enough. And he came in and he just kind of threw out that solo, which is one of the most emotionally wrought solos. Anyone who's watching this who's a Marillion fan will know how much Rothery's solos are an integral part. And so for him to have just kind of thrown that out in frustration or despair or whatever you want to call it, it's quite amazing to me.
You know what? I agree with you. That's probably one of, and you could just think of you could read the title of the song and you'll remember the solo right there and then, right? That's when you know it's a great. It's kind of like Comfortably Numb. You know that solo. Sugar Mice is the Comfortably Numb solo of Marillion.
Well,
Steve Rothery.
some people tell you, well, a solo's not, doesn't make the song. Great guitar players will make their solos memorable. They will construct them. They will think about the melodies and where they're going. Even if they're not consciously constructed, as in, you're just recording or doing a take or whatever. All the best ones, you mentioned David Gilmour, Adrian Smith is like that. Jimmy Page, obviously, Steve Rothery, Steve Hackett. They create songs within songs, I guess, is the best way to put it.
And hats off to Mark Kelly too, because he doesn't overplay the keyboards. He knows when he needs to step back or move forward, right? He can play that beautiful piano piece, and then he just play a couple of chords in the background just to give the song atmosphere. So hats off to him too.
And also the choice of keyboard sounds or patches and stuff that he's using, and the choice of synthesizer things. Like you say, you got the xylophone thing going on at the start of Hotel Hobbies, which, doodle 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 doodle, and then this chord going on, and there's so much going on. If you stick your headphones on and you hear this stuff darting about, it's just wonderful, and that's the mark of a great producer too, I guess.
Put on Warm Wet Circles. It's not like a double meaning. There's triple meanings and quadruple meanings of a warm wet circle. Warm wet circle at the bar, right? Warm wet circle when it comes to a woman. Warm wet circle as a kiss. That's how creative Fish's mind is. He could take a song, make it melodic, make it atmospheric, make it have meaning for him, make it have meaning for others, and then make it all interesting. He sort of, his lyrics make them colorful, and you can listen to it over and over again and just say, wow, I forgot. Oh, wow, I didn't catch that part in this part. It's not overcomplicated, but it's not basic. And, it's not like cat, hat, bat. It's not simple either, right? So
another example of a great Steve Rothery solo in that as well. It's so raw with emotion.
Yep. All right. So I think we just covered, to me, my favorite song on the album is White Russian.
What am I going to say? I'm going to say Torch Song. or Sugar Mice.
I don't know. White Russian to me, when he's using the analogy of the Holocaust and to the record labels, to the feeling of feeling, where do we go from here? Put on that song. It's like a hard rock song. It falls in more in that vein than it does in a sort of proggy. So I love this album. All right. Where am I with the solo albums here? I'll go through them quickly. A Field of Crows. Nope, sorry, Fellini Days. He's back on track. This is the reissue of Fellini Days. It's just remastered, not remixed. I was a little upset it wasn't remixed. I would have loved it. By the way, the Fish store is closed. Farewell. He shut down the Fish store. You can still buy stuff at the pop-up stores, which is basically selling his stuff, in little record stores and places around the gig. So pick that stuff up. I think this is a really cool album. Fellini Days, it's the famous Fellini director, the Italian director. Throughout the album, it's not a concept album, but throughout the album, he's got little snippets of audio of Fellini talking in Italian. It's more of a hypnotic feel. A lot of drum machines, but still a lot of cool melodies. He's far away from Marillion at this point. But my favorite track on the album is So Fellini, 3D, Tiki 4, Long Cold Day, and Obligatory Ballad. So pick this up if you're a fan of Fish. Another must-have. We'll go through them quickly. Field of Crows. Now, you saw this tour, right?
I did. I saw him in Camden at the time. The irony being that I was living up the road in Belsize Park at the time, and Belsize Park is mentioned in Cayley, where he was living when he was writing Cayley or in and around that time. So it was all very mind-blowing to me. I saw him in the Camden Palais, whatever it is. And all I can remember is that he was very late for some really strange reason. Actually, it was a Sunday night as well. But and he played almost all solo material. So a bit of a confusing gig, actually.
I have this album here. Sashimi. Did you ever see this one? He released a lot of bootlegs over the years.
Okay.
You know, sort of soundboard recordings that he put on his label. And he just flooded the market with a whole bunch but it's a great bootleg. It's a great bootleg. He's got a lot of cool little bootleg live albums. Would have liked to see a re-release of this. Field of Crows was released in 2004. Again, he's got a little more momentum. Not my favorite album, but I see that the fans do like this one. So I'm not going to talk too much about it because it's not really my favorite one. Never really picked it up because I was very lukewarm to it. But maybe now that Fish is gone, I'll revisit it and take a look at it. After that, a really big album in 2007, 13 Star. Now they got a lot more down tuning going on, more heavier riffs. Definitely another big comeback in terms of an album. Fish has kind of been pushed aside, but now the momentum's coming back. People are revisiting all his music over the years that he's put out. And 13th Star is a great one. Circle Line, Square Go, Zoe 25, Arc of a Curve, Mashmal, another cool song, another cool album. And after that, A Feast of Consequences, which was his 2013 album. Not a big fan of that album either, but there's one song that he has on video. It's called Blind to the Beautiful. Probably one of the greatest songs he's ever written, period.
I will interject here because I love A Feast of Consequences. I think that album is unreal, brilliant. It was the first time I was listening to Fish again. You know, Jimmy was saying there, I kind of wasn't really following him through his solo career. And then I got a copy of A Feast of Consequences after interviewing Fish, and he sent it to me to thank me for the interview, which was unexpected because you know it was a bumpy road sometimes interviewing Fish, but and I was so glad that he did because I put it on and I was like, this album is incredible. The title track is unreal. The High Road is one of the sweet. I think it's an incredible album. I'll advocate for that one.
Okay, actually, it's good. You know, maybe I didn't like it too much, but you liked it a lot. That's cool. We should also say that Steve Wilson was a part of Fish's history over the years, from Porcupine Tree. Steve Vancis, who was a co-writer with him for many, many years. Hats off to him. There's so many collaborations with so many people. And then that brings us to his last album. Pronounce it for me.
Is it Weltschmerz?
Weltschmerz. It's a double album. It was we'll call it a COVID album released in 2020. This is his final goodbye. And I'm going to read what someone wrote online because I was trying to figure out what is this? How can I define this album? Weltschmerz is the most recent and last album of Fish, the end of a brilliant career of this iconic artist. Weltschmerz is a German expression that means world pain. It's a dark album with a feeling of world weeness and melancholy. It's a very personal album for Fish. It reflects a variety of circumstances of his life, his mistakes, his illness, due to the death of his parents, I guess, band changes, global pandemic, and the political changes already mentioned by the above. And a lot of people are saying it's probably one of his best albums. Sound-wise, production-wise, I would agree this is probably one of his best albums. If I was to tell Fish, hey, Fish, if should you release 2 CDs or 1 CD, I would have told him, you know what, just put all the best stuff onto one. But since it's his last album, heck, put it on 2. I think it would have been a stronger album if it was 1, but I think it is a great album and definitely worth picking up. If you could pick it up. I don't even know if they sell it anymore, but if they do, definitely grab it. Some beautiful stuff. More soft-spoken word than singing, but it's okay. I'll let it go. He's had a great career. And that's it. Farewell to Fish, my friend.
That's it. That's right. He's playing his last gigs tonight and tomorrow. He's actually on stage right now in Glasgow. And I wish I'd been seeing those shows, or at least one of them. But who knows? You never know. Sometimes these guys will do a one-off here and there.
I missed an album, by the way. I just realized it. Rain Gods with Zippos, the worst album cover by Fish by far.
That is some Photoshop hell.
And actually, I will say this was released in 1999. It's got some rockers, it's got a lot of acoustic stuff. It's got some swing. It's got those Roger Water moments. Tumble Down, Mission Statement, Incomplete, Faith Healer, which is a cover. Rites of Passage, which has these, it's very Pink Floydy, and Plagues of Ghosts, which is it's a huge fan favorite. So this is another great album you should definitely pick up by Fish. You know, he's always been experimenting with funk, with blues, with the spoken word, which he did with Marillion too, with swing, right? With Celtic, with folk. His mind is always moving. And this is what he said in his final podcast on Friday, which was the last Fish on Friday. He said that I'm stopping being this solo artist or the singer that you know, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to be creative in the future. So who knows what door that'll open. He also said that he had his tarot cards read. And the tarot reader, which I don't believe in, but to each their own, said that you're going to have 3 major careers in your life. 1, of course, was Marillion. 2 was being a solo artist. And 3, he thinks it's a farmer somewhere northern Scotland.
Well, I think if, as you're saying, Jimmy, if you've been listening to his podcast or paying any attention to his socials for the past 5 or 6 years, even before he's moved to the island, he's big into growing his produce, and he's got his all the plants, and he's very earthy, outdoorsy, whatever. He's got a whole world to tend to with that. So I think he will do very well looking after that side of his life.
He must be 65 now, 64, around there.
I have no idea.
When you think about all the music, man, all the friggin' music, man, he's done. And, he's influenced so many people, great lyricist, great vocalist, great composer. And, he's had a lot of ups and downs. The rise with Marillion, and then the fall with record labels and building a studio and losing money and trying to go on tour, refusing to go on North American tours because you'll lose money, but then recovering.
Working with Yannick Gers.
Yeah, on his first solo album, right? But then recovering, because I remember when he was putting these suckers together, all the Fish reissues and the Marillion reissues, and there were stacks of reissues that he was sending out, and fans were buying them up, and they closed the store. They wouldn't have closed the store if they didn't just pretty much sell everything they had. So he's leaving on a high note. Congratulations to Fish.
Yeah, it's an incredible career. I mean, clearly we're both fans here, and we've invested a lot of our own money in Fish-related product over the years, and tickets, and I think he thoroughly deserves to go off and enjoy his island. I should say not Hawaii, but it's better than my island. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. All right. And that's pretty much it. I could just say to everybody who has been watching, leave a comment. Tell us about your favorite song by Fish, your favorite album by Fish, your favorite show or performance by Fish. I never got to see him as a solo artist. So anyways, that's what it is. I should have just booked a ticket to Scotland and gone, but anyways, that's what it is. I have his music. I've got tons of videos from him and all that. So it's all good. All right, my friend.
All right. Thanks for having me, Jimmy, and see you down the line.